Refineries and military facilities are burning loudly in Russia. In recent days, Ukrainian defense forces have struck several strategic targets at once, from ship bases in Novorossiysk to oil refineries in the Saratov and Ryazan regions. Fuel depots in Engels and military equipment warehouses in the temporarily occupied territories were also ablaze. Details in the report by Daniel Dayomin.
On the night of November 14th, Ukrainian Neptune missiles and strike drones hit the ship base in Novorossiysk, in the Krasnodar region. Key port infrastructure facilities and the Sheskharis oil terminal were hit. This is one of the largest oil pumping complexes in Russia.
A launcher of the S-400 air defense system, a missile storage facility, part of the port infrastructure and support facilities were damaged. Detonation and fire have been recorded. The extent of the damage is being clarified.
OSINT analysts have confirmed that the territory of a military unit was hit. An anti-aircraft missile regiment of the Air Defense Division is based there. In addition, the occupiers have also deployed S-300 and S-400 systems as well as the Panzer system. The local authorities, who initially kept quiet about the strike, later declared a state of emergency.
Transneft halted the pumping of oil to Novorossiysk. The port temporarily suspended exports of up to 2 million barrels per day. That's about 2% of the world's supply.
Drones struck the Saratov oil refinery, one of the main facilities supplying fuel to Russian troops. After the explosions, a massive fire broke out at the facility.
Explosions followed by fires were recorded on the premises. The facility is involved in supplying the Russian occupation army.
Another strike in the same region targeted the fuel storage infrastructure of the Crystal plant near Engels. Explosions rang out and a fire broke out. Plumes of smoke and fire could be seen from every corner of the city. On November 15th, drones attacked the Ryazan oil refinery. It produces about 840,000 tons of aviation fuel annually, including for the Russian aerospace forces. The explosions and fires were so powerful that local residents eagerly filmed the aftermath of the strikes.
According to updated reports on the strikes, the Ryazan oil refinery sustained damage to the ELO AVT-4 and ELO AVT-6 oil processing units, a petroleum product storage tank, and a pipeline trestle.
Ukrainian drones struck the Nebo-U radar station in temporarily occupied Crimea. They also derailed a military train near Tokmak and inflicted losses on enemy personnel near Vovchansk. On the night of November 16th, the defense forces struck Russian energy facilities in the Volgograd and Voronezh regions. Russia claimed to have shot down 36 drones, but at the same time was forced to restrict operations at least 11 airports.
During the night, several important targets related to Russian energy were hit on Russian territory. Meanwhile, Russian air defense fired at an apartment building in Volgograd.
The Novokuybishevsk oil refinery was also on fire. It is one of the largest in Russia, processing nearly 9 million tons of crude oil annually. This refinery is among the main producers of jet fuel for military aviation.
The facility supplies the Russian occupation army and is one of the main producers of top-grade fuel for jet engines. Explosions and a fire have been reported. The extent of the damage is being clarified.
In temporarily occupied Donetsk region, defense forces struck a drone warehouse belonging to the Rubicon unit. This unit had been actively using UAVs against our positions. Ukrainian defense forces are systematically and purposefully striking oil refineries, logistics, fuel depots, and air defense systems, precisely those elements that keep the Russian war effort afloat. The losses over just the past 2 days are estimated in the billions of dollars, from lost fuel and equipment to the suspension of oil exports through Novorossiysk. Daniel Diomin, details, Inter-TV channel, Marathon United News.
Fierce fighting on the front continues even now, particularly near Kucheryavy Yar. This is the Dobropilya direction. There, according to deep state analysts, the defense forces once again pushed the enemy back from the village of Sharkov. Meanwhile, the Russians have advanced in Volodymyrivka and near Sofiyivka. At the same time, the defense forces report that the assault on Novopavlivka in the Dnipropetrovsk region, which the enemy launched on Friday, has been repelled. The 9th Army Corps has released a video of destroyed Russian equipment that was taken out in Novopavlivka by fighters from several brigades holding the defense there. In the settlement, only isolated enemy forces remain. Russians are hiding in basements and in bombed-out buildings there. But Ukrainian soldiers are tracking them down and clearing them out. The fog, which has been covering the area for several days now, including the front line, has somewhat slowed the enemy's advance in Pokrovsk. This is reported by the fighters who are fighting there. Because of the weather, Fewer drones are being launched there now, but close quarters combat has intensified. Since the beginning of the day, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, there have already been more than 1,500 clashes along the entire front line, most of them in the Pokrovsk sector. For the first time in Zaporizhia, the defense forces shot down a Russian reconnaissance drone called Veshchi Oleg. This is a new drone used by the occupiers, which until now had only been spotted in the Donetsk region. It can reach speeds of up to 130 kilometers per hour and operate within 45 kilometers from its launch point of departure. This drone does not have a satellite navigation system and features a protected channel that is resistant to electronic warfare. The soldiers of the 118th Mechanized Brigade destroyed the enemy's wing of a standard 10-inch FPV drone. 57 Ukrainian drones targeted 6 regions of Russia. The Ministry of Defense of the aggressor country claimed that their air defense forces allegedly neutralized exactly this number of our drones last night. However, social media is flooded with videos showing drones attacking various targets in the Russian Federation. Already the previous evening, footage appeared of a drone flying and exploding in Volgograd. There, according to eyewitnesses, several drones have already once again struck the Lukoil oil refinery. At the same time, Russian air defense tried to shoot down the Ukrainian drones but hit a residential high-rise instead, according to Russian Telegram channels. Also last night, the Novorossiysk oil refinery in the Samara region was hit. It is considered one of the key producers of high-grade fuel for jet engines. And finally, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine released a video showing Ukrainian Bars drones attacking several important enemy targets in temporarily occupied Donetsk region. In particular, they managed to strike a storage base for Rubicon unit drones and a station that pumps fuel and lubricants. President Volodymyr Zelensky's European tour continues today in Athens. There, the Ukrainian delegation was received in the palaces of Greece's top officials. Both countries signed an important energy agreement, which Zelenskyy had announced the day before. So what was agreed upon in the energy sector, and will we have enough gas this winter? A report from TSN correspondent Irina Kondrachuk from Greece follows.
A summery 20 degrees in Greece and conversations about the unbearable winter in Ukraine. That's how the visit of the Ukrainian delegation to Athens began. A plane under the blue and yellow flag landed at the local airport. Volodymyr Zelenskyy was met there. With all the ceremonial honors, his motorcade headed to the presidential palace. And what touched us most, especially along the roads of the Greek capital, was that the local people themselves stopped along the way to raise Greek and Ukrainian flags in their hands, smiling and waving at us. They were happy to see us, and this warm welcome was then echoed at the diplomatic level as well. The president in particular spoke about the ongoing support for Ukraine in its struggle for independence, as well as in the fight to restore its energy sector. And
this position of ours is a result of the fact that our country steadfastly supports the UN and international law, which was violated by the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
in particular, the most important agreement was reached a little later, after a brief conversation between the presidents and the two delegations. Volodymyr Zelenskyy met with the Prime Minister of Greece and also the heads of the state oil companies of Greece and Ukraine. Both signed an agreement contracting the transportation of gas from Greece to Ukraine, specifically to the city of Odessa. And these contracts will come into effect already in January 2026 and will be valid for a short period. During the heating season to cover the needs, and in the long term, they will also operate from a strategic perspective.
As part of the large energy package, today we signed an agreement with the Greek state-owned company for the supply of gas to Ukraine through the vertical corridor in the first quarter of 2026. That is, this is exactly the period when we need to replace our own production, which was destroyed by Russian terrorists. We have reached strategic long-term agreements for imported gas.
As for the volumes, the head of Naftogaz, Serhiy Koretsky, has so far asked not to go into details and did not name any figures, but said that this will cover part of the deficit we have. And our deficit amounts to 4.4 billion cubic meters of gas, and in monetary terms, this is 1,900 million euros. We remember that out of this amount, which is covered by our banks, European support, as well as support from other countries, including the Netherlands, there still remains 750 million euros to be found. Of course, they will continue to look for this amount. And of course, energy is not the only issue. The top officials of Greece have repeatedly expressed their gratitude and support to Volodymyr Zelenskyy, and in particular to the Ukrainian people in their fight against Russian aggression and for the integrity of Ukraine. After all, the issue of annexed territories and illegal occupation has been a painful one for them since the times of Cyprus. And they said that they would stand with Ukraine until the end, including helping to rebuild the country, as well as to bring back Ukrainian children who were abducted by Russia. Irina Kondrachuk, Yevhen Latvinenko, TSN 1+1.